months into World War II, and Hitler returns to an historic location. It's November 8, 1939. Hitler is due to make a speech at the Bürgerbrau Beer Hall in Munich. There, he had made his first bid for political power almost 20 years earlier. But 20 minutes after he leaves the hall, the room is ripped apart by a bomb. 9 people are killed, 60 more are wounded, but Hitler is long gone. Eventually, the man who brought devastation to Europe will die by his own hand. But until that day, he will survive numerous assassination attempts. Hitler claims he is protected by fate and delights in taking this as evidence of his divine mission. But why do so many plots to kill Hitler fail? This program uncovers the secret resistance that operated in Nazi Germany. The loners and groups of plotters driven by a common goal: to kill the man who would destroy Europe. January 1933, Adolf Hitler has risen to power, and the great majority of Germans support him. They view him as the man who can pull Germany out of the economic chaos that has plagued them since World War I. But there are some individuals and groups within Germany who realize that Hitler is dangerous for the future of their country. Communists and other opposition political parties are the most obvious centers of resistance. Hitler deals with them by imprisoning their members in concentration camps. It is the beginning of a terrifying, repressive regime in which any opposition is instantly crushed by the Nazi Party and its secret police. But the most threatening opposition to Hitler's power comes from within his own party. It comes from the SA, the Brown Shirts. These are strong-armed men who fought on the streets to win political power for the Nazi Party. Ernst Röhm is head of the Brown Shirts. He wants to see the revolutionary politics in Germany continue. But Hitler must appease the more conservative elements of the government and army. They consider the SA a paramilitary threat. In 1934, Hitler personally joins a convoy of SS officers driving to arrest Röhm and other leading Brown Shirts. They are on vacation in southern Germany. Röhm is accused of treason and imprisoned. SS officers later enter his cell and offer him the choice of suicide. He refuses, and they shoot him. Other opposition leaders are also eliminated. With the end of any effective political opposition, religious leaders begin to protest. Cardinal Faulhaber bravely organizes a Catholic procession against Nazism through Munich in 1938. Martin Niemöller is a leading Protestant seen here on release from prison. In his final sermon in 1937, he exclaims, "We must obey God rather than man." But Hitler has no mercy for these protesters. Many are arrested and executed. Groups opposed to his rule go underground, operating within tight circles of trusted friends. Those most likely to come into contact with Hitler operate within the army. In 1938, Hitler's aggressive foreign policy outrages General Ludwig Beck, the army chief of staff. When Hitler demands that the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia be handed over to Germany, Beck resigns. As Czech soldiers mobilize, Beck writes a memorandum to his fellow officers. He is afraid that Hitler will plunge Germany into another disastrous war. Beck's successor, Franz Halder, agrees with him. Halder sees only one solution to the disturbing rise of fascism in Germany. He meets with Colonel Hans Oster and General Erwin von Witzleben. The three men draw up a plan to assault the Chancellery and kill Hitler. But the Sudetenland crisis is diffused. The Munich Agreement gives the region to Hitler without ever going to war. Halder halts his plans. By now, other individuals realize that only Hitler's death would stop the growing juggernaut. These individuals are all loners who manage to slip through security and get surprisingly close to their target. Maurice Bava is a Swiss theology student who pretends to be a great admirer of the Führer. In 1938, he visits Berlin, and then, under the pretense of paying his respects, he goes to Hitler's special residence at Berchtesgaden in the Bavarian Alps. But the Führer is too busy to meet with him. There is one date that Bava knows Hitler will keep: the anniversary of the Beer Hall Putsch of 1923. This is the place in Munich where Hitler first made his bid for power. There, Hitler fired a pistol in the air and declared the start of a revolution. The putsch came to nothing, and Hitler was arrested, but it gave him tremendous publicity and set him on the path to political power. Bava buys a ticket for one of the viewing stands on the parade route that Hitler and his Nazi veterans will take. The dictator approaches. Bava fingers the pistol he has recently bought. He is close to the procession, but there are too many bodyguards around Hitler for him to get a good shot. Undaunted, Bava continues to shadow Hitler throughout Germany, but he begins to run out of money. On a train bound for Augsburg, he is stopped and arrested for traveling without a ticket. His pistol is discovered. In prison, the Gestapo questions him relentlessly. After brutal interrogation, he admits his plan. He is tried by a people's court and sentenced to death. 3 years later, he is beheaded. The next major assassination attempt on Hitler's life occurs just 1 year after Bava's failure. Again, it is conceived by one man, but his plan is more thoroughly organized, and it would come within just 20 minutes of ending Hitler's life. September 1939. As Hitler invades Poland, other European powers can no longer stand by as the Third Reich expands. Both Britain and France declare war on Germany. It is the crisis that many German critics of Hitler feared. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris is head of the German military intelligence. He fears the expansion of the war and plots with Army Commander-in-Chief Walter von Brauchitsch. They want to delay the invasion of the West. Some of Canaris' staff even discuss the idea of killing Hitler with a bomb, but it comes to nothing. Another loner, however, would come within minutes of killing him. George Elser is a cabinet maker with strong socialist beliefs. He has spent a year single-handedly building a bomb. Like Bava, Elser thinks that Hitler's annual pilgrimage to celebrate the Beer Hall Putsch is his best opportunity. Elser moves to Munich and visits the Burgerbrau Beer Hall night after night, hiding there after it closes. He digs a hole in the pillar behind the speaker's rostrum. In it, he puts the time bomb he has built himself. Hitler is expected to still be talking at 9:20 p.m. on November 8th. Elser sets the timer on his bomb. The day arrives, but at the last moment, the dictator changes his plans. He finishes his speech early and leaves before scheduled. 20 minutes later, the bomb explodes. 9 people are killed and 60 injured. Hitler most certainly would have been killed by the explosion. He visits those who were wounded. His own amazing survival only confirms his belief that fate is on his side. Hitler takes the assassination attempt very seriously and has a propaganda event staged around it. The bodies of the dead are put on public display and crowds of Germans pay their respects. Hitler personally consoles the families of the victims. The same night as the explosion, Elser is arrested as he crosses into Switzerland. Under Gestapo interrogation, he confesses to the assassination attempt and even reconstructs the bomb for the Nazis. Elser is imprisoned in Dachau concentration camp. He survives most of the war, but in April 1945, he is executed. German newspapers proclaim that the SIS, the British Secret Intelligence Service, is directly involved with the Elser plot. In retaliation, Nazi intelligence sets up a snatch operation at the Dutch border crossing near Venlo. German agents pretend to be Allied sympathizers. They convince two British SIS agents that they can introduce them to a German general organizing a plot against Hitler. At the border, the two British agents, Major Richard Stevens and Captain Sigismund Payne-Best, are jumped, thrown into a car, and taken to Germany. The British are now suspicious of any German claiming to be opposed to Hitler. The Fuhrer, it appears, is too popular in Germany for an assassination attempt to be carried out easily. As World War II enters its second year, opposition to Hitler within the army is maintained by a small but close-knit group of officers. Former Army Chief of Staff Ludwig Beck forms a group known as the Black Orchestra. Along with retired Field Marshal Erwin von Witzleben, General Henning von Tresckow, Count von Helldorf, head of the Berlin police force, and Ulrich von Hassel, former German ambassador to Rome. Another group of both civilians and army officers is headed by statesman Helmut von Moltke. He and his fellow conspirators meet on his family estate at Kreisau in Siberia. They are called the Kreisau Circle. Yet despite these two groups, opposition within Germany is at a low. 1940 is the year of Hitler's greatest military success. In a rapid blitzkrieg campaign, he conquers the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. It is a dazzling victory and silences the objections of his opponents. It seems that Hitler can do no wrong. But then he makes his greatest mistake. It is one that will galvanize his opponents and lead to both the greatest attempt on his life and the shattering of the entire Nazi regime. June 1941. Operation Barbarossa. Nazi Germany launches the greatest ground offensive in history against Russia. Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union is crumbling before him. Hitler considers himself a god of war. Why should anyone want to kill him? But by the end of 1942, Hitler is halted outside Stalingrad. It is the beginning of a great Soviet counteroffensive. German military support begins to waver. Would-be assassins who have remained dormant during Hitler's years of success are encouraged. One group of German officers is determined to either arrest the dictator or kill him when he visits their headquarters at Poltava on the Eastern Front. But at the last moment, he changes his flight, and the plot is abandoned. A month later, near Smolensk, two British clam explosives are disguised as bottles of brandy. They are handed to a member of Hitler's personal staff. He then boards an aircraft that will take the Fuhrer home from a visit to the Eastern Front. The plane takes off with Hitler and bomb on board. The bomb is timed to explode half an hour into the flight. 2 hours later, the plotters hear that Hitler has landed safely at Rostenburg. An officer is sent to retrieve the bomb before it is discovered. It seems the low temperature in the plane's storage bay prevented the detonator from igniting the plastic explosive. Just 2 weeks later, Hitler's miraculous luck is tested again, this time by Colonel Rudolf von Gersdorf, another member of the growing number of military dissenters. At a viewing of the Berlin Museum, von Gersdorf plans to blow himself up alongside the Führer. In the pockets of his greatcoat, he places 2 bombs. But Hitler passes quickly through the exhibition. Von Gersdorf runs to the nearest lavatory and removes the fuse just in time. At the same time as German opponents of Hitler are planning their own attempts at assassination, Allied organizations are also trying to develop methods of killing him. In wartime Britain, the SOE, the Special Operations Executive, is set up to give support to resistance movements across Nazi-occupied Europe. Germany, however, is considered largely impregnable. A year earlier, in May 1942, SOE-trained Czech agents prepared to assassinate Reinhard Heydrich, Nazi governor of Czechoslovakia, and one of Hitler's favorite henchmen. The operation is a success, and Heydrich is killed with a bomb in a major blow against the Nazi hierarchy. But the assassination is followed by savage reprisals. The SS enters the Czech village of Lidice. The entire village is eradicated, and 5,000 civilians are executed. The extent of the punishment of the innocent discourages any further action against German leaders. But this attitude changes 2 years later, in 1944, as the Allies prepare to invade Nazi-occupied Europe. The Third Reich is crumbling under attacks from both the East and West, and Hitler enjoys far less support among his own people, even among the German army. Some Allied generals believe Hitler is now more valuable alive than dead. His military genius is deserting him, and he is quickly leading Germany to disaster. In the meantime, German resistance to Hitler is growing, culminating in the biggest plot against him. On July 14, 1944, Hitler flies into the Wolf's Lair, his East Prussian headquarters at Rostenburg. Hundreds of prison laborers have reinforced the headquarters, turning it into a concrete fortress. Extra security fences are being erected. Hitler sleeps in temporary barracks until his Führer bunker is ready. On the morning of July 20th, he rises earlier than normal. That afternoon, his friend and fellow dictator Benito Mussolini will arrive. Hitler reschedules his daily war conference meeting with his generals so that it will finish before his guest's arrival. Many of his leading war organizers are scheduled to attend. At 12:25 p.m., Hitler walks the 40 yards to the Great Conference Hut. Inside the conference room, the officers gather around a long oak map table. Hitler takes his usual place at the center of the table facing the windows, which are open because of the heat. On his left are Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, General Alfred Jodl, Chief of Staff of the Army, and his deputy, General Walter Warlemann. On Hitler's right are General Adolf Heusinger, head of operations staff, who was giving the briefing, another operations officer, Colonel Heinz Brand, and General Günther Korten of the Luftwaffe. As Hitler sits at the table studying maps, General Keitel announces the arrival of the Chief of Staff of the Home Army, Colonel von Stauffenberg. Von Stauffenberg sits between General Heusinger and Colonel Brandt. The 37-year-old von Stauffenberg is an impressive figure whose dedication to the German army is unquestionable. Stauffenberg was born in 1907 to a family which had closely served German royalty, a privileged position at the time. He was a strikingly handsome young man, but in his late teens he rejected his upper-class conservative background and embraced socialism. By 19, he is an officer in the 17th Bamberg Cavalry Regiment and goes on to serve with distinction in Poland, France, and North Africa. In April 1943, while fighting with the Afrika Korps in Tunisia around the Kasserine Pass, he is severely wounded by Allied ground attack aircraft. He loses one eye, over which he wears a patch, and his right hand and half of his left. While recuperating, he begins to loathe the Nazis and their totalitarian leader. He is determined to rid Germany of this disastrous regime. His wife recalls his feelings.
After he was really partly recovered, then it began that he got a sort of call to Berlin, and I very soon noticed that there was something going on and told him, and he told me about this plot, but he never told me that he was doing the deed himself.
Stauffenberg returns to service as Chief of Staff of the Army Ordnance Department in Berlin. But this time, he has a new purpose. Through his cousin, he makes contact with the Kreisau Circle, headed by Helmut von Moltke. They meet at Kreisau, where they discuss various plans to remove Hitler. In January 1944, von Moltke is arrested, and Stauffenberg takes over his position as leader of the conspiracy against Hitler. With suspicions rising against von Moltke's associates, Stauffenberg has to move fast. In a calculated move, he becomes Chief of Staff to General Fromm, commander of the Home Army in Berlin, a position that gives him access to the Führer at the War Conference meeting on July 20th. Stauffenberg and his colleagues have been preparing for this moment for months. At some point during the meeting, Stauffenberg mumbles to Keitel that he must make a telephone call to Berlin. Sliding his briefcase under the table, he leaves the room. Unknown to anyone, the briefcase contains a bomb. But as soon as Stauffenberg leaves, Colonel Brandt moves it behind one of the solid oak legs of the table, away from Hitler. Stauffenberg exits the hut and walks towards his staff car. Behind him, the conference room explodes in a flash of yellow light. He leaves the headquarters ready to launch the second part of his plan and take on the rest of the Third Reich. On July 20th, 1944, a bomb has exploded in Hitler's conference room. Hitler is engulfed in the greatest attempt on his life. Major General Walter Warlimont was caught in the blast.
Hitler was lying on the big oaken conference table with almost the whole of his length when the bomb exploded.